Want to hear some crazy stuff? Some adventures with Eli? Well, if you do, then stay tuned. My name is Eli Magids, and I'm a real estate advisor here in Charlotte and the surrounding areas, specializing in luxury homes and new home construction. But more importantly, and the reason for this video, is that I am your realtor with heart. I'm really not trying to sell you a house. I'm here to help you find a home and a lifestyle that you and your family are gonna love. So this video is gonna be a little bit different than my typical normal videos where I talk about all the luxury real estate. This is gonna be a story about one of my clients and the troubles that we've had trying to get him a house, a particular house with a particular seller. So the story goes like this. I get a phone call from a gentleman in Colorado. He's looking for a home in Charlotte, North Carolina for his wife and 4 kids. He asks me if I can go and take a look at a couple of houses for him. I go to one house, it's an open house. I'm on FaceTime with him and his wife. They're going through, it's okay. That's not the house for them. So I go to a second house on a completely different day. And I go to this house and I check it out and I FaceTime them and they loved the pictures online and they loved the house in person. So I'm FaceTiming them and I'm going through every nook and cranny. I even walked to a neighbor who was washing his car, talk about adventures with Eli, and I interrupted this poor gentleman and I asked him about the neighborhood. I asked him about the boat slips. I asked him about being on the water. They love the house. Now we're in a very tight real estate market, so we don't have a lot of time to think. These guys are deciding whether or not they want the house. So I describe how we put in offers here in Charlotte, what we need to do to get a house. I've been very successful in getting homes for my clients. So I call the agent and I ask him, what is the seller looking for? What's most important? And the agent goes to me, which is the first sign I should have realized. He goes, we got everything we need. We got all the offers. We have everything. Unless you're coming up with cash, don't even bother sending in an offer. It's like, wow, that's rude, but okay. So I go back to my guys in Colorado and I tell them, unless we're coming up with cash, this guy says he's got everything under the sun covered. Guy was a little bit arrogant. My guys wanted to put in an offer anyway. We put in an offer. The following day, I got a phone call. The client, the seller, likes our offer. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that they took this offer. This is unbelievable. This is like unprecedented for me. I was so not expecting to get this offer accepted, and it was accepted. Very awesome, very happy. Unbelievable house, very happy for these guys. That's where the fun starts. Now here in North Carolina, we have to give a deposit called a due diligence deposit, which allows us to take a look at the house and decide whether or not we want the house so we can have it inspected. And nowadays, because of the tight market, we're giving huge amounts of due diligence money, which if we change our mind that we don't want the house, we can pull out of the contract, but we lose that money. And this was a substantial amount of money. The due diligence is typically due with the signing of the offer or the contract. My guy signed on Monday. This gentleman signed on Tuesday night. My guy is in Colorado. The soonest that he could get a due diligence check over to the seller would be to overnight it on Wednesday, and in which case the seller would receive it on Thursday. So my buyer decided instead of overnighting a check, he will fly in from Colorado Thursday night, come and see the house Friday morning, hand the check to the seller, and we would get it inspected at the same time, killing all birds in one fell swoop. Now I talked and I contacted the other agent and I told him, this is what we plan on doing. Is it okay? And he said, absolutely, go for it. I set up an inspection. My guy is on an airplane on Thursday afternoon from Colorado coming into Charlotte. And the agent calls me and says, we have a problem. I said, okay, what's the problem? He says, my seller will not allow your buyer to inspect the house until he has the due diligence check and it has cleared his bank account. Now, there's nothing in the contract here in Charlotte that says that that check has to clear the bank account. All he has to do is actually receive the check. My buyer was on an airplane trying to wire money into this guy's account. And you have to understand that my buyer's bank is in Minnesota. He was on a 5:30 flight from Denver to Charlotte, and he had a laptop and was getting onto a plane and was trying to wire the money for the due diligence into the account of the seller so that when he got here, we could have it inspected. Long story short, my seller was not able to wire the money, and it really put us in a lurch. I even consider taking money out from my account and giving the due diligence money to the owner, because that's how much I trusted the guy in Colorado, and that's pretty much how I trust everybody. I have a defect. I don't know if it's a defect or if it's a good thing, but I have trust in people. So I was going to give this guy money from my account for my buyer. The seller even said to his agent, let the other agent give us the money for the due diligence. I actually ran to the bank and the bank was closed. So here I have a buyer on a plane from Colorado coming to Charlotte to go and look at a house and then have it inspected, and the seller is not allowing the inspection. So after I made the appointment for the inspection, I canceled the appointment for the inspection the following morning, Friday morning. We walked into the house with the seller being there, and he was the biggest ass I have ever met. Typical New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker, okay, and that's why I left New York. But this guy was he says, well, you can't trust anybody and you don't get a free look. And his wife starts chiming in, and of course they can't make any eye contact with you. I mean, it was so freaking uncomfortable. So my buyer walked through the house for about 15 minutes, took a look at it, and saw it up and down. He got a very good look at the house, but he flew all the way from Denver to see and have the house inspected, and this SOB did not let him have the house inspected. Now, what if this guy's son, somebody had done this to this guy's son and did the same thing? His son flew across the country to look at a house and have it inspected and say, oh, well, the due diligence didn't clear in my account. Well, frankly, it doesn't have to in order to allow an inspection. My seller flew back to Colorado, and my guy has already given him this large due diligence deposit, handed it to him in a check, gave it to him. I never received permission to go into the house. I set up the appointment with the inspection company, but I didn't get permission to go into the house. I texted, I called the other agent, nothing but silence. Nothing. So I go ahead, I made an appointment for the following week, the following Friday, and then the agent calls me on Wednesday and saying, well, Wednesday doesn't work and Friday doesn't work, but you can do Thursday. It's like, are you kidding me? I book the inspection for Thursday. I show up. The owner is there again. Now, typically, owners are not there. When you walk through, when you're having inspections, the owners like take off. They're there. His wife is there. It's like, what is going on here? So the inspector goes through. I pretty much stayed outside in the car because I felt really uncomfortable. So much that I mean, listen, I'm a very mellow, easygoing guy, but once you get the New York going in me, like, the New York starts coming out. Now, my buyer is the most mellow guy. His wife is such a sweetheart. and I don't want to screw this up for him. He says, just Eli, just let it go. He's very nice, very kind. And literally the first time when I went in there, when he didn't want to allow us to inspect it, I wanted to pop him, but I didn't. You know, I'm civilized. So we're having this inspection, and during the inspection, this person comes waltzing down the stairs, you know, like he's working out in his fancy sweatsuit. And he says, oh, yeah, well, I know that we have a closing for May 6th, but I understand that I'm allowed to have 14 extra days. Now, it is true in North Carolina, you do have 14 days from the date that you actually specify as the closing in which to work towards closing if there's an issue that comes up. This guy knew that he was going to have an issue. This guy was building a house. He knew that it wasn't going to close on May 6th. He knew he was going to take 2 extra weeks. His agent knew he was going to take 2 extra weeks. My guy has already made arrangements to move all his stuff. And this guy waltzes and says, I think we have 14 days and we might need it. So I call his agent and I say, what's the story with the 14 days? He says, well, we're not sure. We'd like to close on the 6th, but we're not sure, but we'll let you know. But we'll let you know. Now, a due diligence period is typically 3 weeks. But because of these tight markets, we're only getting about 2 weeks. So our due diligence is about up. And I need to know, like, what date are we closing? Like, what's going on here? I did not get a date for closing. I called the agent. I texted the agent. The agent didn't reply. Freaking insane. I mean, insanity. Not only did I not get a closing date, but the agent and the seller didn't respond to the attorney. The attorney needed information so that we could pay off any kind of debts that this guy had, any mortgages. We needed to have the HOA information. We had to find out if he had paid for the HOA. I mean, there were things that we needed to have information that weren't provided to the attorney. We finally get a closing date from this guy, May 19th. May 19th. He has a moving truck coming the 17th. They're going to move everything out the 17th. They're going to sleep over the 18th, and then they're going to leave on the 19th. And my guy, my client, my sweet family is going to have a walkthrough on the 18th at 4:30 p.m. So finally, the Friday before closing, this guy gets his S together and sends over all the information that's needed. Paralegal in the office, the attorney, they're working on the file. We have to get the mortgages done. We have to get everything done. This guy is moving out on Monday and we're closing on Wednesday. Monday, I get a phone call that the moving truck is going to be delayed and he's not moving out the 17th. He's going to be moving out the 18th, which is the day that we set up for 4:30 p.m. to do a walkthrough. I said, well, how are we going to do a walkthrough when they're moving out? They're going to move out the 18th. We're going to close on the 19th. And now the seller wants to sign before the 18th. He was scheduled to sign the 18th. He wants to sign on the 17th. So now the attorney is really in a hustle. We get to the house. There are 2 moving trucks there. The owner of the house is there. It's so uncomfortable. My guys go through the house and look at the house. I mean, you can't tell if anything's bashed up, but the bottom line is that they walked through, they got to see the house. They met the owners. I said to the owner, you know, your agent isn't great. In fact, he sucks. And I didn't tell the seller that actually he sucks too, because I don't want to rock the apple cart at this point. So the seller shows them around, shows them where the keys are going to be, and tells us that the keys, the entrance to the house, is going to be through the garage. And at the closing, right after we close, he's going to send me, or the agent is going to send me the garage code so we can get into the house. And then I went ahead and I said to the seller, dear seller, can you do me a favor, just in case the garage code doesn't work, just in case your freaking agent doesn't respond to my texts like he hasn't done for the last month. Can you hide a key someplace? He says, yeah, I can hide a key someplace for you. I'm going to slip a key into the front flower pot so that you have an extra key just in case. I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. My guys left. They're worried about the mortgage. They're worried about everything else. They're a little bit nervous. Moving trucks, chaos, confusion. Closing. Wednesday morning, the 19th. My guys get to the attorney's office 10 o'clock like scheduled. They wired their money in at 9 o'clock, even though their bank is in Minnesota and it's an hour behind at 8 o'clock. They were able to wire the money into the attorney's account. Money was there. We had a great time at the closing. This couple is awesome. Husband and wife, they're absolutely the best. We had fun with the attorney. We closed. The way it works in North Carolina is that until the house is recorded, so you sign all the papers, you give away your money, but until it's recorded with the county, the house is not officially yours. But typically, the other agent will give you the keys so that you can get into the house. You've got moving trucks coming, and it only takes about an hour to actually record it electronically. So I go ahead, I text the agent, I text the owner of the house, I got his phone number, and I said, we have signed all the documents. The money is in the attorney's account. It may take until the end of the day until it gets cleared through your account. Can you please give us the garage code? Nothing but silence. Then I get a text from the seller saying, we're driving and we're not going to be able to give you that information. We'll pull over. Silence. Nothing. Finally, I get a text from the seller that says, we're not giving you the garage code until all the money has cleared our bank account. Which is BS because all it has to do is have a signed and recorded deed, which we did have. We sent out the recorded deed. I had the attorney send an email that we had a recorded deed. And only then did I hear from the agent and from the seller giving me the code to the garage. And in addition, they said they left the extra key, but they left the extra key in a flower pot in the back of the house. He told us we were going to have a key in the front flower pot, but he changed his mind and said, you know what, F them, I'm putting the key in the back flower pot. This was the most unbelievable transaction of my life, most frustrating. Now, this is a humanistic business. This is about heart. This is about soul. This is about human beings. This is about people changing lives. This is about doing the right thing. The seller did not do the right thing. He was an ass. The agent was even worse, if possible, because he didn't communicate anything. If he had communicated all of this stuff, it's possible a lot of this could have been avoided. So to make a long story short, my guys finally got into the house. The house is freaking gorgeous. I'm glad I didn't open my mouth until after so that my guys' transaction could go through and they can get the house of their dreams. I mean, it was absolutely the most frustrating thing on the face of the earth. I mean, you couldn't get more frustrating. Like, it felt like popping somebody in the face. Now, I didn't, right? I held back. I wanted my guys to get the house. The house is gorgeous. You know, they love the house. And I'm so happy that in the final walkthrough that the wife still loved the house. I still love the house. It's a solid house. It's beautiful. But let's hope that karma is on our side. And not to say that this always happens, and I never like to talk bad about like an agent or a seller or a buyer, because I typically don't. But recently, like, stuff is hitting the fan. That aside, I have had a bunch of transactions very recently where everything is smooth, texting goes back and forth, phone calls are picked up, sellers are responsive, buyers are responsive, and it all works out. This was one really bad apple. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, maybe I'll have another story. Maybe not as long a story. I got lots of stories actually.